Ninotchka, better late than never. Finally, we got a comedy. It took until 1939 for Garbo to link up with Ernst Lubitsch and to make what is one of the most delightful comedies of the whole period, and the most perfectly cast role for Garbo.
Ticket, please.
Tickets, please. Tickets.
How are things in Moscow?
Very good. The last mass trials were a great success. There are going to be fewer but better Russians. What's that?
It's a hat, comrade. A woman's hat.
How can such a civilization survive which permits their women to put things like that on their heads? Won't be long now, comrades.
To me, there's no question that the film that is most like my aunt, the way she was in real life, is Ninotchka. She was a very, very funny lady.
She was one of the funniest people I ever knew. And she loved to ham it up and joke and, pull people's legs. And you see that coming through in Ninotchka. She was a great comedian.
I'm so happy. Oh, I'm so happy. No one can be so happy without being punished.
After Ninotchka was finished, Lubitsch said, this is a huge hit. I mean, it was a fantastic success. I want to do another film with Garbo, and it made perfect sense. I mean, this was a wonderful movie. He couldn't get her on the phone because Sulker Vertel said, don't talk to Lubitsch. So Garbo didn't talk to Lubitsch. What a tragedy for American film history.
Capitalizing on her success in Ninotchka, MGM tried to refashion Garbo's image.
Two-Faced Woman has the sad distinction of being the last film Garbo made. It is also the worst. It was the only film that she ever made that was completely and roundly panned by the critics. Deservedly so. George Cukor directed it, and directed it very hastily and very badly, and it made no sense at all. All important actresses and actors made films that were duds. Davis, Crawford, had lots of them, but Garbo never had, and she didn't know how to handle it. And how she handled it was by being devastated by it. But an even bigger reason why the film was relegated to the trash heap of history is that it was released within a few weeks of an event called Pearl Harbor.
The money they made out of Garbo at the studio, which paid her salary, was from abroad. Hitler comes along and they lose the foreign market. It wasn't there anymore. And she realized after the failure of Two-Faced Woman that she was a dead weight. She couldn't earn her salary. So very virtuously, she went to L.B. Mayer and said, I know your problem with me, and I will solve it for you. I will withdraw from my contract. I have so many more years, whatever the details were. And don't worry about me. And now she's only, what, 33, 4? I'll sit out the war, and I'll come back.
You know, there have subsequently been a lot of people coming to Hollywood, and they're always touted as the next Garbo. And one day when we were in the apartment with her, we were watching TV, and they had somebody on who was going to be the next Garbo. And she said, you know, I'm different inside. There'll never be another Garbo.
After the war, Garbo chose to live a private life. Film offers were rare and came to nothing. She occupied her time traveling with friends and with collecting antiques and paintings. But why in her desire for seclusion did she not choose Sweden?
It was simply too small. It was hard enough living in America, New York City, this gigantic place where you could at least disappear if you wanted. It was a lot harder to disappear in Sweden.
Garbo took such pains to keep out of the public eye that to paint a portrait of her at this period is difficult. But a close companion for 20 years was Sam Green.
Possibly the reason why Garbo and I got along so well is because I hadn't seen any of her films before I met her. Garbo didn't know very many people. She didn't want to know very many people. She was very private, but at the same time, she had difficulty doing things alone. So I was corralled into being her friend and escort and confidant and walking companion, which I was very pleased to do because I liked her. She was not a very complicated character to either figure out or to be friends with. She was straightforward, she was honest, she had a marvelous sense of humor. She was the consummate entertainer, and she would always be entertaining when I was in her company. She was a great comedian. She could imitate almost anyone's walk or gestures, and often their voice and their accent. She was very good with accents. And she enjoyed entertaining because it was in her nature to be an entertainer, except she didn't have an audience. I think I was just her audience of one. When I first saw Garbo's apartment, I was really quite amazed because she was so unassuming in her appearance and in her dress that when I got to her apartment, I realized she lived in an opulent palace. It was huge. It had glorious antiques. Everything was lushly covered with velvets and fringe and a wonderful collection of paintings. When Garbo went shopping for art and went to exhibitions, she was not particularly knowledgeable about the artist. She simply bought what she liked, what appealed to her in the way of color and form and whimsy.